There's a process running on your iPhone right now that is analyzing the contents of your private photo library without asking your permission each time it does it, without notifying you when it runs, and without giving you a simple and obvious way to turn it off completely. This is not speculation. This is not a privacy researcher's theoretical concern about what Apple might be doing with your data. This is documented, confirmed, publicly acknowledged functionality built into iOS that Apple has described in its own technical documentation, defended in response to public criticism, modified under pressure, and in some cases, quietly expanded in ways that received significantly less attention than the original controversy that surrounded the feature when it was first announced. Your photos are among the most personal data that exists on any device. They contain images of your home, your family, your children, your medical documents, your financial records if you have ever photographed them, your private moments, and your daily life across years of accumulated memories. The system analyzing those images is doing so continuously, invisibly, and with capabilities that have evolved significantly since most people formed their understanding of what iPhone photo scanning actually does. To understand the full picture of what is happening, you need to separate two distinct systems that are both analyzing your photos and that have often been conflated in public discussion, because conflating them obscures the different privacy implications of each. The first system is on-device machine learning, analysis performed by iOS itself and by Apple's own applications, primarily the Photos application and the visual lookup feature. The second system, which generated the most intense public controversy, is the detection system Apple announced in 2021 that was designed to scan photos for illegal content before they were uploaded to iCloud. Understanding what each system does, how each system works, what data leaves your device as a result of each, and what controls exist for each requires treating them separately, even though they are related, and even though the lines between them have shifted as Apple has updated its approach. The on-device analysis system built into the iOS Photos application is extensive and has been expanding with each iOS release. Apple's Photos application uses on-device machine learning models to analyze every image in your photo library and extract a remarkable range of information from each one. It identifies the faces of people in your photos and groups images by person, building a facial recognition database of everyone who appears in your library. It identifies locations from image metadata and from visual content analysis, building a map of where your photos were taken. It identifies objects, scenes, activities, animals, plants, food, vehicles, landmarks, and dozens of other visual categories, which is what powers the search functionality that allows you to type a word like beach or dog. Or Apple has consistently maintained that the core photo analysis for organization and search features happens on your device rather than on Apple's servers, and the architecture it has described is consistent with this claim. The machine learning models that power these features are downloaded to your device and run locally, which means that in the most privacy-sensitive sense, the raw content of your images is not being transmitted to Apple for analysis. However, on-device processing is not the same as complete privacy, and the distinction between what is processed locally and what is transmitted to servers is more nuanced than Apple's marketing language about privacy sometimes suggests. When you use visual lookup to identify a plant or landmark in a photo, information derived from that image is sent to Apple's servers to retrieve results. When Siri suggestions use your photo library to surface contextually relevant content, the system is making decisions based on your photo analysis that may influence behavior across your device in ways that connect to Apple's broader services infrastructure. The facial recognition data used to group photos by person is stored on your device, but the existence of a detailed facial map of everyone in your life, built automatically without explicit individual consent for each person photographed, is a significant privacy consideration that goes beyond the question of whether it leaves your device. The second and more controversially discussed photo scanning system was announced by Apple in August 2021 as part of a set of child safety measures. Apple described a system it called Neural Match that was designed to compare photos against a database of known illegal child abuse imagery maintained by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children before those photos were uploaded to iCloud Photos. The technical approach Apple described used a cryptographic technique called private set intersection that was designed to allow matching against the database, without Apple being able to see the actual content of photos that did not match. Apple argued this design made the system more privacy, preserving than server-side scanning approaches used by other technology companies. The announcement was met with immediate and intense criticism from privacy researchers, cryptographers, civil liberties organizations, including the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and security experts, who raised concerns that went beyond the stated purpose of the system. The core technical objection raised by researchers, including those at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and cryptographers who published open letters opposing the system, was that the infrastructure created for one surveillance purpose, however legitimate, creates infrastructure that can be compelled or expanded to serve other surveillance purposes. A system that scans photos before upload against one database can be compelled by governments to scan against other databases. A system that identifies one category of illegal content can be directed to identify other categories of content that are illegal in some jurisdictions, but represent political speech, religious expression, or minority identities in others. The researchers arguing against the system were not defending illegal content. They were arguing that the surveillance infrastructure itself, once built and deployed, poses risks that extend far beyond its stated initial purpose, and that those risks fall disproportionately on populations. In countries with authoritarian governments who use Apple devices, Apple has operations and sells products in numerous countries where the legal definition of content that authorities want, identified on citizens' devices, is not limited to content that liberal democratic societies would consider harmful. In response to the volume and technical credibility of the criticism, Apple announced in December 2022 that it was abandoning the neural match CSAM detection system before it had been deployed. The announcement was made without fanfare and in terms that left ambiguous whether the abandonment was permanent or a pause pending a redesigned approach. Apple stated that it had concluded that it could not proceed with the system without risking unacceptable privacy trade-offs. Privacy researchers, including those at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, what replaced the announced CSAM system is a set of features Apple has described under the umbrella of communication safety. Rather than scanning all photos before iCloud upload, communication safety is implemented as a feature within the Messages application for accounts set up as children and family sharing. When enabled, it uses on-device machine learning to detect nudities, images sent and received through Messages, and displays warnings to the child before they view content flagged as sexually explicit, with options to contact a trusted adult. Apple has described this as entirely on-device, with no content leaving the device and no reports sent to parents or to Apple without the child's action. The feature has been expanded in iOS 17 and later to cover additional applications beyond Messages. Understanding the distinction between this child-specific communication safety feature, the general on-device photo analysis for organization and search, and the now abandoned pre-upload scanning system is essential because public discussion frequently conflates them, creating both unnecessary alarm about features that are actually on-device and insufficient attention to the legitimate privacy questions that the organizational analysis system raises. Here is what you can do to understand and control the photo analysis happening on your iPhone. The first step is to go into your settings and tap on your name at the top to access your Apple ID settings. Then tap iCloud, then tap Photos. If iCloud Photos is enabled, your photos are being synced to Apple's servers, which means they are subject to Apple's server-side content policies and any scanning Apple performs on content stored in iCloud. Disabling iCloud Photos means your photos remain only on your device, which removes them from any server-side processing Apple performs on cloud-stored content. The trade-off is that you lose iCloud backup for your photo library and access across devices. If you choose to keep iCloud Photos enabled, be aware that your photos exist on Apple's infrastructure and are governed by Apple's iCloud Terms of Service. The second step is to review which third-party applications have been granted access to your photo library. Go into Settings, tap Privacy and Security, and tap Photos. You will see every application that has been granted any level of photo access. The access levels available are none, Add Photos Only, Selected Photos, and All Photos. Review this list critically. Every application with all photos access can read the entire content of your photo library, including all metadata. Revoke full photo library access from any application that does not have a specific functional reason requiring it, and grant selected photos access instead, which limits the application to seeing only the specific photos you choose to share with it. The third step is to understand and control the Siri and search analysis of your photos. Go into Settings, tap Siri and Search, and review the settings related to learning from this app and suggestions. Within the Photos application's Siri and Search settings, reducing what Siri learns from your photos limits the extent to which photo analysis influences Siri suggestions and cross-app. The fourth step, relevant to users with children using iPhones, is to review the communication safety settings in your family sharing configuration. Go into Settings, tap your name, tap Family Sharing, and tap the account of any child in your family group. Review the communication safety settings available there and ensure you understand what the feature does and does not do. Specifically, that Apple has described it as on-device only with no reporting to Apple, so that you can make an informed decision about whether to enable it for child accounts in your family. The conversation about what Apple is doing with your photos is necessary because the capabilities built into your iPhone for analyzing your photo library are extensive, not fully visible in day-to-day use. and the boundaries between local processing and external server connections are not communicated clearly enough for genuinely informed user choices. There is a fifth dimension of iPhone photo privacy that receives very little public attention, despite being one of the most significant data exposure risks in the entire photo ecosystem, and that is the metadata embedded in every image your iPhone captures. Every photo taken with your iPhone contains an EXIF data layer that embeds technical and contextual information directs, TLI, inside the image file itself. This includes the precise GPS coordinates of where the photo was taken, accurate to within a few meters, the exact date and time of capture, the make and model of the device, and a unique device identifier that can link multiple photos to the same device across different contexts. When you share a photo through any channel that preserves this metadata, which includes email, many messaging applications, and direct file transfers, you are sharing all of this information alongside the visible image. A photo shared from your home contains the precise GPS coordinates of your home. Research examining metadata practices across popular sharing platforms found that a significant number of applications harvest this metadata in ways users are not aware of and do not explicitly consent to. iOS provides a mechanism to strip location data before sharing. When you tap the Share button on a photo in the Photos application, tap the Options button at the top of the share sheet before completing the share. This reveals a location toggle that, when disabled, removes GPS coordinates from the photo before it is sent. This toggle is not enabled by default. It requires a deliberate action every time you share a photo, and developing the habit of checking it before sharing is one of the most direct privacy actions available to you within the Photos application. The sixth area of photo privacy that users rarely examine is the permissions granted within Apple's connected services. When you enable shared albums, which allows selected contacts to view specific photo collections, or iCloud shared photo library, introduced in iOS 16, which lets families contribute to and view a shared photo collection, your photos move through Apple's infrastructure in ways that extend access beyond your own device and account. Shared albums content is stored on Apple's servers and accessible to every person added to the album. Go into the Photos application, tap the Albums tab, scroll to Shared Albums, and review every album listed there. Confirm you know who has access to each one. Shared albums created months or years ago and forgotten can represent ongoing access to photo content. That is no longer appropriate. Disable any feature whose privacy implications you have not fully considered by going into your photo settings within the iOS Settings application and reviewing each feature listed there. The seventh consideration is third-party AI photo applications. Many apps offering AI-powered editing, enhancement, or organization upload your photos to external servers for processing rather than handling them on your device. When you use these features, you are transmitting your photos, including their embedded metadata, to infrastructure governed by that company's privacy policy rather than Apple's. Review the privacy policy of any AI photo application you use, specifically looking for language about data retention and model training rights, as many policies permit use of uploaded photos to train commercial AI systems without explicit user awareness. Your photos are the most personal record of your life in digital form. The faces of people you love, the places you have been, the private moments you have captured. All of it exists in a library being continuously analyzed by systems whose full scope most users have never examined. Review these settings today, strip location metadata before every single share, audit your third-party photo permissions, and make deliberate choices about which cloud features you enable.